So let's just start off by establishing the dantians. So the lower dantian, pulling it in and then pushing it out, feeling it like a muscle or a lung that breathes. It's pulling into itself and then it squeezes out. And that causes the spine to bow forwards and arch back. Okay. And then just feel the dantian. So we have the three dantians, the belly, heart, and head. And they all have a mind associated. So we talk about head mind being thinking and heart mind being compassion. So there's also belly mind, which is just that still, ruthless, dispassionate, cold, low center. So mind in dantian, it's really developed belly mind or developed dantian mind. So you need that at the base so that the other two can rise up from that. So the heart mind is really the spirit center. The head mind, which people normally think of as thinking, in what we do, thinking does not come into it. Thinking is like the enemy, really. So the head mind is really just perception and tuning into the field of consciousness, just becoming very aware and awake. Okay, now let's work on the other two. So first, just the hands behind the back. You just want to stretch across here. So the manubrium, the top of the sternum, It has the sternal notch on the top, and it has the two notches where the collarbones come in. And we're just trying to stretch that across. Because if anywhere, that is the spirit center, that's the house of spirit. So we have those three important bones in the body: the sacrum, the sternum, and the cranium. And they are all composed of a few bones that have sort of glued together. So the sternum is the manubrium at the top, and then the sternum proper, which drops down from that, ending in the xiphoid process. And the sternum itself is like 4 bones that are fused together. The sacrum is 5 bones that are fused together. And with the tail, there's another 3 or 4. And the cranium has all of its plates, which have a little bit of breathing mobility. And so we're just trying to bring movement into those bones. Okay, now just start moving the head. Loosening the upper vertebra and the shoulders. So the head should be really mobile, because it needs to see all around. So as I move my head, I'm becoming aware of the space that I'm in. Nowadays, people tend to have their heads just fixed ahead, either looking where they're going or looking at their phone. And they tend to be unaware of what's around them. We want to be very much aware and including what's behind us. So we need to be able to twist the head enough to be able to sense what's behind us. And we also need to develop eyes in the back of the head. And all the time, we want to be aware not just of what we're sensing, what we're perceiving, but also how we're feeling. How does looking up feel different from looking down? And let's do a little bit of our little stretching routine. So first, rubbing the hands. Bringing warmth energy, but also sensitivity to the hands. And then the knees. Activating the Dantian center again. Pulling in, pushing out. And then breathing. Feel the viscosity of the air. It's almost liquid. And turning with it. And then reaching. So when we slip into the reaching, it's like the intensity diminishes a little. It's more like a job of work. Imagine you had to do this all day without a break, and how would you pace yourself? That's the grimness of Dantian, mind in Dantian. It should be there all the time. I'm reaching out and I'm pulling into my belly. of you reaching up. The heart center's getting a little bit activated. And then the hands together. Okay, then let's do a little bit of turning the head. So one hand up, one hand down. And turning the head. Sense that the hands are figure-eighting. And get some looseness into the jaw as well. And the hands up. And then let's try a bit of the butterfly. And then let's come into the squat. Spreading the legs. And then let's just try a bit kneeling and going down into the fetus. We would like to be able to sit on the ground between the feet. Just be careful, because it does stretch the knees a bit. And then just stretch the arms up and leaning forwards into the fetus. Back up. And now the one where we lie back and cycle. Move the legs. Yeah, so you can think of cycling or like picking cherries, bringing them into the belly. And there's even one where you hold the feet and cycle. Trying to get looseness into the whole hip region. into the sumo squat. And then up. Ooh, the ground looks so far away. All the time listening. My turning is scanning, especially the ground. Centrifugal, centripetal. Centripetal is drawing into the belly. Centrifugal tends to come out of the heart. The best way of describing the way we're trying to become is that phrase, in a state of grace and with a sense of wonder. And you can just catch that in an instant. It's not as though it's something that the future holds for us. It's present. It's a sense of wonder that leaves us dumbstruck. There are no words. There's no voice in the head. There's just perception and amazement, astonishment. And now, let's just try a bit of this one, getting the feet active. And it's the sense of the energy rippling up and down. So when my heel comes up, it's like a ripple comes up that side of my body. As my heel goes down, the ripple goes down up the other side. And feel how this alternating action of the two legs and feet produces a turn. And we want to try and turn towards the foot with the heel coming up. So we're turning into the activity all the time, rather than turning away from it, but turning to face it, which would give us a sense of having space, time to consider. That's what we're wanting to do away with. So I'm coming into the spirit. So I'm bringing my weight into the foot that has the heel coming up. So it's a bit difficult and it's a bit wobbly. And then a bit wider. So the same exercise. Feel it turning you. That's the important thing. Try to keep both heels sort of up all the time. They're going up and down, but they're never really quite touching the ground. So the whole system is really precarious. It's basically the figure of eight exercise. We're really just doing two figures of eights with the arms and the hands. With the same sense that there's a figure of eight inside each foot. And really open here in the groin. This is what we're trying to get. And then just keep it going in the feet. But it sort of becomes the first warmth exercise again. But it's really wobbly. Okay. And then just bring it to riding horse. Feel the flow down. Let's just try a little bit of gathering gravity down the spine and then splitting at the sacrum. And sense that I'm gathering energy that belongs to the ground. I'm allowing it to funnel down through me and seep into the ground. And then just slipping into riding horse again. And I just feel that you're wet through, you're dripping. And then coming off the heels, activating the thymus, the spirit. So onto tiptoes, onto the ball of the foot. You're on the ball. You're ready to launch. And you feel really alert and ready, awake. And then locking back into the heels, into one, into the other, and then line up with gravity. so that you can be taken down into the heels. And then one more coming off the heels. Feel it heating you up. Really beginning to smolder. And into the heels. 1, 2, and let the ground beneath the heels suck you into it. And that will bring the bum in, get you leaning back a little bit, and you'll need the arms out front as ballast. Or to feel the ground sucking me. I'm not just settling upon it. It's not just a hard surface. It's like a mire, a swamp, a bog, and I'm slowly being drawn down into it. And now let's do the little jog, but feeling the knees light, and the knees wanting to dance. The knees are very light, wanting to come up, so I have to keep my sacrum heavy without being dull, hanging down behind the knees. The knees have a sense of adventure and also mischief. They're always wanting to escape. Light-footed, fleet of foot. If you want to be light-footed, you need to keep your heels off the ground. And now, moving from leg to leg, but with very light foot. So I just let my foot come off the ground just a little bit, and then I reach and pull. As one foot and leg becomes heavy and supportive, the other leg can become really light and free itself from the ground. Feel that real openness in the hips. So without the openness in the hips, the freedom in the knees won't really be able to express itself, because the legs will just be stiff and immobile. Here, my knee can really come up because I'm open in the groin. The foot goes down so lightly, kisses the ground. Whoa. So the act of bringing my weight into the foot is actually gathering the ground up into the groin and the dantian. So I'm scooping. So my sinking into the leg is actually drawing the ground up into me. Again, picking the cherries, reaching out to gather, and gathering very much into the belly. And now just moving from leg to leg without picking up the foot. This can be more sort of considered and quieter, if you like. If I want to consider pulling with that foot, I need to create a space, an empty space for the ground to come up into. And this is the yielding. Yielding is making a hole to bring the other into. I'm reaching out, but very much with a view of gathering in. It's like your hand that goes out to pick the blackberry right at the top of the bush. If you just send your hand out, chances are you'd fall into the bramble. So you need to have this feeling that you're trying to ensnare something and bring it back in as you're reaching up. Hunter-gathering. When we lost that, that's when it all started going downhill. Gathering into the belly and hunting from the heart. So my arm is going out from my heart. I'm really eager, I'm greedy almost. And then it's my belly contracting that draws me towards the hand and the foot. Now let's try just a little bit of the two circles, because it's the same thing. Again, it's reaching out to pull in, but I'm reaching around the thing and circling it, and then I can bring it in really gently instead of yanking it. So I encircle, and then we both move together to the side into the foot. Feel the openness in the groin here. That's where the hand tends to be pulled down into. I want to be very aware of my legs, the action of the legs with the ground. Mind in Dan Chen. So we've spent so long with our mind in our head that to actually get it down to the Dan Chen adequately, we need a lot of experiences of having mind in the lower body with the ground and with the feet on the ground. So all of these exercises are very much aware of how the body is interacting with the ground beneath it. Good. And then just back to riding horse. Again, just feel the ground sucking you. The ground is pulling your buttocks. So they have a sense of melting and dripping down the backs of your legs. If I get this well, then this just frees up. Sense that the ground is trying to claim my body. The earth would be happiest if I just died, fell down, and started dissolving and seeping back into it. The same as the heavens would be happiest if I died, so it could claim my spirit. My spirit would just get drawn up. And so we are those two things that have come together almost reluctantly. We just got to make the most of it. But we just want to feel those two fundamental forces, the desire of the body to return to the earth and the desire of the spirit to return to the vastness of the cosmos. And everything that we do is the combination of those two. So one is gravity drawing in and down, and the other is levity, that's opening out and drifting upwards. And how I decide to combine those will produce different actions. Okay. And now let's just go backwards and forwards. It's the same thing, really, pulling with the leg, drawing the ground up. This has more of a sense of like feeding from the ground. I'm bending my leg in order to draw the ground up into my belly. You can think of it as drawing energy up. You can just think of it as drawing strength up so that you don't fall down when you bring the weight into it. But however I conceive it, I have to really stay open across the sacroiliacs and in the groin. So all depends upon looseness in the hips. And it's yielding, making a space and drawing something into that space, a space inside you. Here it's the belly. But to get to the belly, it has to come up the leg. So it comes up the inside of the leg and into the belly. So when I bend the knee, I have to keep it out to round out and soften the inside of the leg. And then with the other foot forwards, so I straighten the leg and the arm, and then I bend it. So yielding is the straight becoming bent, the masculine becoming feminine. And attacking is the bent becoming straight, feminine becoming masculine. To feel that moment where it changes. Straight becomes bent. The straight arm becomes ward off. The straight leg becomes ward off. Just want to feel that. Feel the feeling of ward off. It's protective and it's claiming, it's cuddling, it's wrapping around something. And now the other foot forwards again. And now, same thing, bringing the energy up, but now bringing it out of the opposite hand. Yeah, so we just have to feel how they're completely different. The act of gathering energy into yourself is the opposite, really, of sending energy out of yourself. So there's one mind to bring the energy up to the Danshan, and then another mind to intend it down the arm into the hand and out to infinity. I'm drawing up from the earth, and then I'm sending the energy up and out. Feel the spine. The spine sort of bows in order to gather the ground up. And then it arches and the chest rises to send the energy out. Again, it's breathing. And then some with the other foot forwards. Gathering the ground and issuing it. Now let's try just rolling the shoulder. Sinking into the opposite leg, but really pulling at the shoulder to loosen it up. Almost like you're trying to pull your collarbone out of its connection with the sternum, stretching the chest. And then the other way. Now it's the shoulder blade that we're trying to pull away from the spine as we go over the top. Now let's try just lifting the foot. Yeah, so to lift one foot, I have to bring the weight into the other one, obviously. And I want to feel that as the outside edge cutting down into the ground and scooping up the inside. It's the energy rising up the inside of my leg that drags the foot up with it. That's the sense. You have to sort of imagine that for a while until imagination becomes reality. Scooping down and under, and something rises up the inside. Slowly, with repetition, the sacrum starts to soften and widen. And I get a sense of my tail unraveling and slipping down the supporting leg. Like I'm dipping into the ground at the bottom of my sacrum through the leg. The more I sink, the more this knee can come up, and vice versa. This exercise is really, really good for just getting a sense of the lower part of the body, the leg that's supporting me. I want to become really aware of it, and aware of it trying to bend even more to get me closer to the ground. Closer to the ground I am, the more stable I am. And the more I have a sense of listening to the earth. There's a Japanese Buto dancer Min Tanaka. I've seen him loads of times in London. And he used to have this thing of traveling to far-flung places and just dancing, taking his clothes off. He danced naked and just and they're dancing. It's really animalistic and they sort of writhe on the ground. And he said it's like he absorbs the energy of the ground, of the place, the earth, of the location. That's the sense with our work. We're drawing information. We don't know what it is. That's not our place. Our place is simply to hunt and gather, not to then query what it is we've found. So I'm really listening to the ground. The night before last, I was meditating. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and it was quiet. It's never that quiet here, but it's quieter than it is in daytime. And then suddenly I just heard the windows rattle and all the dogs started barking. But I hadn't heard any sound, any explosion. We're so used to explosions here, you sort of keep your ear open for them. And so it was clear that there was something that the window had picked up and the dogs had picked up, but I hadn't. So there was part of me that wasn't really listening. And if you just imagine how much information there's available and how little we actually are capable of registering, let alone awake enough to register. I'm on tenterhooks, I'm all ears. And my feet are, in a sense, sensitive ears as well. They go down and they're listening to the vibrations, listening to the messages that are trying to rumble up into me. So the more we bring the knee up, the more we sink down into the sacrum and beneath. The more we listen, the more we're just one listening organ. So there's a sense that Dan Chen is fundamentally a listening device. And mind in Dan Chen is just an acute attentiveness. So the higher you can bring the knee, the more you'll sink down into the leg and under. So my tail goes down into the ground and seeps under the ground forwards. That's a real sense that John had that all the time. You know, he could just come out of his room, he'd still be half asleep, and he'd look around, he'd see someone, and he'd sort of just amble towards them. But there was this sense that by the time he got to you, you were already coming off the ground because he'd got under you. And it's just weird because he was, as he came towards me, he'd always just feel quite short. And yet when he stood next to me, he was like an inch taller than me. So he had a real presence beneath his Dan Chen. And that's really important. If we want Dan Chen to be a natural dwelling, then we need to be as familiar with what's beneath it as what's above it. And then we want the feeling that when the foot goes out to step, the energy is already established and the foot just goes along a slide that has opened up by my sinking and my tail projecting forwards onto the ground. So the foot goes out, but I have to really stay behind the supporting leg in order to not fall into the foot. Because if I fall into the foot, I'm falling from on top. I want to get into the foot from underneath it. Let's just try just the beginning of the form, just maybe through to single whip. But with that, bringing up the foot and the knee before we send the foot out to step, just to get us into the lower body, beneath the dantian. So I circle around the foot, and this knee has to come up. So I've got this feeling that I'm sinking into this leg, and then I can step out. This knee comes up, I'm sinking down into the back leg, and then the leg can go out. And then the other side. So let's finish. And there's always a sense that this is wanting to happen.